Good afternoon. Welcome to the Introduction to Skilling Queenslanders information session. My name is Stacey DeKelmer. I manage sector capacity here at QCOS, or the Queensland Council of Social Service, and it's my pleasure to present this webinar to you today with information provided by the Department of Employment, Small Business and Training as part of the work we have been doing with them for many years now in supporting the community services sector to engage with and respond to the Skilling Queenslanders for Work initiative. So this is really exciting. First round for this financial year. There's a couple of new aspects to the program if you haven't engaged with it before. So today's session will provide an overview of all the different programs that make up Skilling Queenslanders for Work. We'll go into some of the aspects of eligibility for funding, and importantly, and I think what's really useful about this session is we will provide some information about successful Skilling Queenslanders for Work projects that have happened previously or are currently being delivered by organisations across Queensland. So really useful information. Now, there is a lot of information in this webinar, and I would like you to spend your energy listening and not worrying about taking too many notes about what I'm speaking about today, because we will record this session. We'll provide you with the slides and the access to the recording, but also the DESBT website, if you haven't already been on it is full of this information. Lots of information there, including the guide to applying for funding. So don't worry about taking too many notes. We'll definitely get this information to you, and I will go through each program, as I said, and some further details about applying at the end of the workshop. Now, if at the end of the webinar you do think that your organisation will be in a position to be applying for Skilling Queenslanders for Work and you're interested in submitting a tender in response to this Queensland Government initiative, you can come along to a tender writing session where we use Skilling Queenslanders for Work as our context for submitting a tender in response to the initiative. So we'll give you some more details about them at the end of the workshop. Now, if you have any questions as we move through the webinar, I encourage you to submit them in the chat. We will have some representatives from DESBT on the line who will be able to answer some of your questions. And if we can't get you the answer today, that's something we can take away and get something to you. Okay. I'm going to get started into the content now. Before I speak about Skilling Queenslanders for Work, the initiative, I would like to acknowledge the Yagara and Turrbal people. It's on whose land I'm sitting today, and pay my respects to elders past and present. I'd like to extend that acknowledgement to any First Nations people on the line today, and acknowledge the Turrbal people of Central Queensland. It was on their lands that I was born and raised and enjoyed that country very much in my earlier years, and extend that acknowledgement to the Yugambeh speaking nation on whose land I raised my family today. If you would like to share in the chat the land that you're on today, I would really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, so as I said, our aim today is to provide an overview of Skilling Queenslanders for Work, and provide you with enough information to get started on your submission or considering what a project your organisation may deliver in response to this initiative. Okay, so a bit of context here. So Skilling Queenslanders for Work isn't a new initiative. It's been going for quite a few years now. And so here's a summary of where we're at. So as of 30th of June 2022, $537.4 million has been committed statewide under SKU since 2015. And that's assisted 83,763 individuals, disadvantaged Queenslanders, with $472 million actual expenditure on those projects. 14 competitive funding rounds have been held for community-based training programs, and 2,392 community-driven projects worth $537.4 million has assisted those 83,763 disadvantaged Queenslanders. In addition to that, $35.25 million was allocated across 76 local councils and one statutory authority to create 2,500 additional traineeships under First Start. Now, additional funding was made available from 2016 to 2017 for community-based organisations under First Start, with $9.66 million awarded to 108 not-for-profit community-based organisations under First Start to create 483 new traineeships and apprenticeships. So as of June, at the end of June 2022, 69,449 people have been assisted, with 44,130 gaining a job as a direct result of participation in the initiative. Now, having a look at this funding round in this financial year, we've got $80 million to assist 15,000 disadvantaged Queenslanders through 8 different programs. And you can see those programs up on the screen now. They're all the different programs we'll delve into throughout today's webinar. SKU was revitalised in the 21-22 year to accommodate the changing labour market conditions as a result of COVID-19. And to support the Palaszczuk government's commitments under Unite and Recover Queensland's economic recovery plan to rebuild and grow the economy. So we all know that the workforce has changed quite a bit over the last couple of years, and the SKU program has really reflected those changes. The annual assistance target was increased from 10,000 to 15,000 in the 21-22 period. So this year, this financial year, we'll see 2 competitive funding rounds under a transparent contestable process for 7 community-based programs with a project-based delivery models. So those 7 community-based programs, because remember we've got one that's more at a council level, those 7 are community work skills traineeships, get set for work, youth skills, ready for work, community foundation skills, and skill up. Total funding across those 7 programs is $70.1 million, and representing total regional budget allocation. A quick note here, just around those numbers, those budget numbers, that available funding each round is not just for new projects. So that does include second payments for current projects and ongoing long-term contract commitments. Now, budgets are notionally allocated across the regions, and applications are scored comparatively assessed on a regional basis. Work skills traineeships include 5 qualifications, including construction, conservation and ecosystem management, hospitality, retail services, and workplace skills, or business, it might be known as. So First Start is for councils, allocated by an annual bidding process undertaken by LGAQ in partnership with DESBIT. And that's expected this year to occur in late August, early September, so very close to that now. First Start for community is by direct application to DESBIT and assessed on published criteria. Applications for 22-23 are now open. So priority is given to areas of identified high need for job seeker groups. Okay, so we had results released by DESBIT on the 8th of July. It's really interesting to have a look at the projects that are successful in their application. It gives you a really good idea of the kinds of things that DESBIT is looking at in this program. So they're published on the website, on the DESBIT website. You can find them. And unsuccessful organisations are encouraged to seek feedback via the email address that we will share in the chat. That's sqapps@desbit.qld.gov.au. That's a very busy inbox. You can direct lots of inquiries there. But we do encourage you to get feedback regarding any unsuccessful applications. That's great information to have, not only to inform any further applications you might make in response to Skilling Queenslanders for work, but just generally for your organisation to get information about what funding bodies are looking for in applications. Now, a note here that applications in the last funding round were really undersubscribed for the Ready for Work program. And Get Set for Work was also very undersubscribed. But that may be due to timing, a timing issue. and more applications are expected this time around. May also be the impact of the Australian government expanding the Transition to Work program. But if they're two of the projects that your organisation might be looking at, just note there they were really undersubscribed last time. Okay, so there's around $30 million, which is a balance from round one. And more funds may come available due to refunds or deferrals, but that's kind of the budget that we're looking for this time around. An additional $10 million for work skills traineeships projects under SKU community recovery package has been added to the balance of funds from round one. For Ready for Work, we've got $3.1 million available in round two. The program has been expanded, so age restriction has been removed, 15 years and over with no upper age limit. For Community Foundation Skills, this is a new program and Desbert would like to see more applications this time around. Okay, so you might have seen media release around this, but a little bit more information. So there's a Skilling Queenslanders for Work community recovery package, which has been activated to assist with the cleanup and rebuilding program across southeast Queensland and the Fraser Coast region as a result of widespread damage caused by extraordinary rainfall and flooding, in case you missed that. Projects funded under Work Skills Traineeships, Skilling Queenslanders for Work Community Recovery will offer immediate job opportunities to displaced workers and local job seekers in disaster-affected areas to support the recovery effort. Now, community-based organisations in flood-affected areas are encouraged to submit flood recovery-related work skills traineeship projects proposals. And we'll talk a little bit more about the traineeships and potential projects a little later in the webinar, which might give you some ideas. Now, work skills traineeship proposals offering construction or conservation and ecosystem management traineeships, which carry out flood recovery related works, such as clearing debris, repairing fencing, restoring community buildings or recreation areas, revegetation and regeneration of national parks or green spaces, stabilising creek beds and riverbanks, refurbishing parks or sporting grounds or facilities, restoring walkways, bikeways, footpaths. All of those kinds of things really should be, they're being redirected for funding under this package. Now, recovery work can also include proposals offering business, hospitality and retail traineeships to support social enterprise cafes and other community activities in flood-affected communities. Applications for new community recovery projects will be assessed against standard assessment criteria and government priorities to enable early commencements. So these can be fast-tracked outside of the SKU process. Project works must be located in one of the 21 declared community recovery local government areas across southeast Queensland and the Fraser Coast region. So projects under this are expected to commence in early 2023 and organisations will be contracted for a 12-month duration, with all projects being completed by the 30th of June 2024. Skilling Queenslanders for Work Community Recovery Package will support small business to grow by providing a pool of skilled and job-ready Queenslanders to meet the employment needs of local employers and industries as the economy recovers. Applications under the SKU Community Recovery Package will be fast-tracked and organisations are encouraged to submit applications early. Applications can be submitted via the SKU applications portal under the existing Work Skills Traineeship program. And we'll talk a little bit more about the portal a little later if you're unfamiliar with what that is. More information is published on the Desbert website. There's lots of information there to see. And organisations interested in delivering under this program are encouraged to submit, as we've already mentioned, their applications early. All right. Okay, so Skilling Queenslanders for Work is supported by a statewide regional network, working closely and forming partnerships with community-based organisations and local employers to determine local skills, entry-level industry and labour needs. Skilling Queenslanders for Work has a really critical role in increasing workforce participation by improving work opportunities for vulnerable job seekers. It continues to develop holistic projects that include a range of support measures and to address barriers to participation in work. And Skilling Queenslanders for Work provides opportunities for economic growth across Queensland that's grounded in principles of social inclusion, employment opportunities that meet the aspirations of individuals and their communities, and increasing the accessibility of the labour market for all Queenslanders. Skilling Queenslanders for Work promotes a range of social benefits for individual participants through increased workforce participation that includes improved health and wellbeing, confidence, and social inclusion. And it generates great connections between participants, employers, and community groups. And this is one of the reasons QCOS really enjoys working, being engaged in the Skilling Queenslanders for Work program, because community-based organisations are so well placed to provide the wraparound support that individuals might need to increase their participation in the workforce. There's so many great initiatives and programs out there that community-based organisations are already utilising that work really well in this context. And since 2015, we've had over $173 million invested under SKU, put through community-based organisations operating social enterprises as employment and skills generators. And this has resulted in the creation of over 12,400 jobs. Okay, so we're going to get into the first program that's available for funding, the Community Foundation Skills. This is a new program which was introduced in the 2021-2022 period under the revitalised Skilling Queenslanders for Work initiative. Okay, so in this one, there's up to $5 million available this financial year to prepare 1,400 disadvantaged Queenslanders with foundation skills, knowledge and confidence to participate successfully in a modern knowledge economy. So foundation skills are fundamental skills that support participation in the workplace, in the community and in adult education and training. So individuals who have a very low foundation skills are more likely to experience multiple and complex disadvantage, requiring greater support and assistance in developing high-level foundation skills. So this program provides access to affordable foundation skills training, which is really critical to breaking the cycles of poverty, joblessness, and intergenerational disadvantage. Community foundation skills will offer a broad set of enabling skills on a continuum from basic to highly proficient that include language, literacy, numeracy, and digital and employability skills to develop career aspirations and to build links with the community and employers. Community foundation skills supports people with low-level foundation skills they're seeking to upskill, return to study or enter the workforce for the first time. Around 70% of Australians not in the labour force and 60% in the lowest income bracket have inadequate literacy and numeracy skills that are holding them back. So this training is tailored to the individual foundation skills development of the learner. So they can be enrolled in full foundation skills qualifications or units of competency or non-accredited foundation skills training. This includes standalone non-accredited foundation skills training or prep courses can be delivered on projects as it's recognised that non-accredited training, mentoring and support can be highly effective in developing enabling foundation skills, particularly for people marginalised from more formal education systems. So this really is about a bespoke support for a learner. So stakeholder partnerships will ensure that the foundation skills training is contextualised to the employment and community participation needs of the local area. And as we move through all of these programs, you will really see, if you haven't been involved in SKU before, that this whole initiative partnership really is the cornerstone of all of it. It really does involve lots of different partners making these programs really come to life and make them successful. So the implementation of a foundation skills program supports the proposed National Foundation Skills Strategy to be implemented in 2022. This standalone foundation skills program under SKU will be a significant acknowledgement from the Palaszczuk government that Queensland is investing in community-based foundation skills training to support learners to build these essential skills. So success will be measured by pre and post foundation skills training capability for participants benchmarked against and here's a few acronyms, benchmarked against the Australian Core Skills Framework, also ACSF, and the Core Skills for Work, CSFW, Development Framework. The ACSF, the Australian Core Skills Framework, provides a consistent national approach to evaluating and building the 5 core skills of learning, reading, writing, oral communication, and numeracy. Employment and further training outcomes will also form part of the standard key performance indicators for community foundation skills, consistent with the current monthly reporting by providers across all SKU programs. So for this one, there's an expectation that providers will design services to provide a continuum of support to participants across all learning and work pathways so that they can achieve their learning goals and transition to work or further education. So this is really that stepping stone to the next initiative that they're going on to. All right. So Community Foundation Skills delivers standalone foundation skills training. It's either accredited or non-accredited. Other vocational qualifications cannot be delivered under this program. DESBIT supports use of Australian Core Skills Framework and the Core Skills for Work Development Framework to benchmark a participant's current foundation skills capabilities and use the foundation skills training package to develop their skills. Okay, that's all for community foundation skills. I'm going to move on to the next program, which is Skill Up. So again, this was a new one introduced last year under the revitalised Skilling Queenslanders for Work program. This year, we've got up to $4 million to assist 1,200 adults, 25 years and older, specifically mature age, so 45 years and over, and recently retrenched or displaced workers. Young job seekers aged 15 to 24 years can be recruited into projects. However, a business case or justification needs to be made for their participation. So Skill Up provides tailored assistance and industry-focused training up to Certificate 3 level to adult job seekers to help them get started on a new career path. All participants must be enrolled in nationally recognised training. The program will have an integrated service delivery model, delivered in a community-based setting like the existing Skilling Queenslanders for Work programs. Not-for-profit organisations, including peak industry bodies, that can demonstrate strong links with or representation from government, industry and community sectors will be eligible to apply for funding. Delivery will be industry-focused and training aimed to address critical labour and skill shortages and will equip disadvantaged individuals with the skills required in a changing labour market. A training and support plan needs to be developed for each participant and, where appropriate, individually tailored for the acquisition of foundation skills embedded in the learning support. So the program will target high priority industries with entry-level skills shortages. Lack of skills are a significant barrier to employment, and people who are marginalised from learning are unlikely to engage in training on their own. So Skill Up will target job seekers who benefit from an informal and supportive learning environment that is often best offered by community-based organisations. Okay, community work skills. There's up to $10 million this financial year to provide supported training to 3,300 disadvantaged Queenslanders. This is a project-based delivery model. And I'll share some examples of projects next. So tailored support, including a mix of career advice, job preparation skills, nationally recognised training up to Certificate 3, foundation skills and individual case management. Training and assessment services are funded under Cert 3 guarantee. All participants must be enrolled in nationally recognised training. Their lower level qualifications and foundation skills are recognised as an appropriate pathway. Standalone foundation skills projects can be delivered with Pathway 2 vocational skills articulated. So as of 30 June 2022, 66% of exited community work skills participants statewide have gained a positive outcome. And in this context, a positive outcome is employment, further training, or a combination of both of those things. And the latest external survey results indicate that 78.3% of community work skills participants with a positive outcome 12 months after exiting. So a really great thing that happens after projects finish up through Skilling Queenslanders for Work. Not only is there monthly reporting submitted by the community-based organisations delivering the programs, but there's also a 12-month follow-up evaluation to see what the longevity looks like as far as employment and education goes. So that survey done 12 months later found 78.3% of community work skills participants had maintained a positive outcome 12 months after exiting the program. The delivery of foundation skills is strongly supported by DESBIT, either standalone or integrated into a vocational qualification. If it's integrated, foundation skills should be only delivered to those participants that have been individually assessed as requiring the support. And that's a really key thing to note about Skilling Queenslanders for Work. It certainly isn't just a one-size-fits-all a program where everyone has exactly the same experience. So there is a real emphasis on the individual learner through these programs and ensuring people have the wraparound support that they as an individual need. And that includes what learning they engage in. So if standalone, the pathway to vocational qualification should be articulated with the inclusion of relevant elective units of competency. Okay, let's get into a example of a project under this program. So these good news stories or examples of projects that I will share throughout this webinar are they're developed from the monthly reports and photos of projects submitted by Skilling Queenslanders for Work providers. Okay, so Multilink Community Services was awarded $90,900 under the Community Work Skills Program to assist disadvantaged job seekers, primarily people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds and people from Pacifica communities, to gain skills and experience for employment in the warehousing industry. This project ended in December 2021. Individual support included life skills, employability skills, networking, job preparation, job search, and 3 months post-participation support. The wraparound support included PPE, transport assistance, learner driver assistance, first aid, and forklift training. Upon project completion, 25 participants had been assisted, 23 completed, and 22, or equivalent to 88%, gained ongoing employment. Okay, the next program we're going to look at is Work Skills Traineeships. So this financial year, we've got up to $37.35 million to provide 1,860 traineeships or jobs. So these are unique entry-level traineeships combining elements of a government-funded works project with the benefits of a traineeship model. So traineeships are in one of 5 qualification streams. Those qualification streams, you can see them here on the screen: business, construction, conservation and ecosystem management, retail services, and hospitality. Now, trainees in this program are employed full-time. Approval can be sought for and obtained for part-time work, but that case needs to be made. So trainees are employed on public works, community, social enterprise, or environmental projects that are of benefit to the broader community. We'll see a few examples, but just going back to the funding, additional funding around the recovery from floods. I'm sure you can think of multiple different projects that would have broader community benefit that might be able to sit under Skilling Queenslanders for Work. There's a lot of work to be done around the state. So trainees undertake, under Work Skills Traineeships, trainees undertake a Certificate 1 qualification that integrates vocational skills with on-the-job accredited training. So Work Skills trainees are fully exempt from student contribution fees. Certificate 1 in Workplace Skills has replaced the Certificate 1 in Business qualification. Certificate 1 in Workplace Skills is still part of the Business Services training package. Now, Work Skills Traineeships projects should be delivered on a full-time basis. So the participants need to be working 5 days a week. And DESBIT approval needs to be obtained for part-time traineeships. Generally, this might be sought for participants with a disability, or possibly women re-entering the workforce. But again, just emphasis on the fact that permission needs to be obtained to have a traineeship on a part-time basis. And look, the reason for that, it really is that we're getting these participants engaging the program really in the rhythm of attending work every day. It's modelling that participation in the workplace behaviour. So funding under work skills traineeships is primarily for participant or trainee wages, which should generally make up about 70% of the total cost of the project. In-kind support or complementary funding from other sources is generally required for a project to be undertaken or to deliver a more cost-effective project. Now, Certificate 1 in Conservation and Land Management was replaced by the Certificate 1 in Conservation and Ecosystem Management. Organisations will need to ensure that partnering RTOs do have this in their scope of delivery. So that's a conversation to be having very early on if the project you're looking at does fit under conservation and land management. Okay. So where works are to be undertaken on council-owned land, there is an expectation that council will contribute the materials, equipment or labour to demonstrate support for the project. So another conversation around partnership that's happening very early on in the piece is around council involvement if it is on their council-owned land. Okay, so what kinds of projects are we looking at? The term of the traineeship will be dependent on the length of the project. So nominal duration for a traineeship is 6 months and the time an individual takes to achieve competency. So you need to be looking at all these different aspects. What's the, how big is the project they're working on? How long a traineeship under the qualification you're delivering is typically takes to complete, all of those things. The length of the project must be between 18 and 26 weeks length, determined by the work activities to be undertaken and in alignment with the training plan. So there needs to be sufficient time to complete the proposed works on the community, public works or environmental project, and also the competencies of the Certificate 1 qualification. So in your project planning there will need to be some thinking about making sure there's adequate time and that the scope of the project really fits with the timeline that you have. Projects proposed for delivery of less than 18 weeks will not be supported. So again, the underlying objective of work skills traineeships is not only to leave a visible and long-term impact on physical community infrastructure, but that these opportunities are going to those within a community who need it the most. So the work skills trainees need to be getting into the pattern of going to work every day. They're contributing to a project that has community benefit. And the priority really here is to engage long-term unemployed job seekers. Now, youth participation rate for work skills traineeships is considered quite high, too high at the moment. They make up 62.3% of the participants engaging in this program, but it's not an exclusively youth program. So under former Skilling Queenslanders for Work, youth participation under work skills traineeships was around 36%. Excuse me. And we've jumped up to about 62%. So Desbert would really love to see some more mature age participation rates. At the moment, mature age, it's currently sitting at 8.7% in this program. Under the previous Skilling Queenslanders for Work, mature age participation under work skills traineeships was more around 49%. The prime working age, so 25 to 44, participation rate for work skills traineeships is steady, currently at 29%, but it could be increased. So we've got a high number of long-term unemployed job seekers in this age group who could be targeted through this program. This is an employment-based model, so training is conducted on the job 5 days a week. Again, we're getting into that rhythm of we're attending. It's a paid work opportunity. The job seeker is getting paid. They're adapting to the rhythm of full-time work. Monday to Friday, I get up and I turn up. And they gain confidence by working. They're forming forming relationships with co-workers who are working on the project with them, gaining skills through on-the-job and some off-the-job training. They're exposed to employers in the community, etc. So previous experience highlights that the jobs secured by participants and trainees are often not in the field of study, but their success post program really relates to their overall experience in the project of, again, that participating in the workforce rhythm. Now, the requirement on the RTO to deliver is to deliver large amounts of training in a it won't be in a classroom. They really need to be flexible with their mode of delivery, and in many cases will be limited to the assessment of the competencies that the participants have acquired on the job. So DESBA is funding full-time wages to work on projects of community benefit. DESBA is funding the wages of supervisors to work with participants on a full-time basis with a focus on skills and confidence being delivered on the job. Now, work skills traineeships also reflect one of the range of training strategies already available under user choice, i.e. employment-based delivery mode, and provides direction to RTOs seeking to provide services to a SKU project. The intent is not for Skilling Queenslanders for work to fund the wages of full-time students, as full-time training options are already available under Certificate 3 guarantee in these qualifications. As defined in AVITMIS, 30 employment-based delivery mode includes training activity conducted in the workplace, whether it's conducted by the training organisation or the employer, for example, industrial work experience, field placement, or fully on-the-job training. Okay, so the funded Skilling Queenslanders for Work organisation is the employer and receives funding to primarily meet trainee wage costs. Any unspent or unexpended trainee wages are to be returned to the department. Now, participants sign a training contract with their employer, which is you, the community-based organisation, and are registered as trainees. So this is important. Trainees cannot be put in dangerous work environments or situations. For example, they're not to undertake work of any kind without adequate supervision, and they shouldn't be undertaking works that might be hazardous to their health. So this is not the project for you if you're looking to remove asbestos from old buildings, for example. As of 30th of June 2022, 65.6% of exited work skills trainees statewide have gained ongoing employment. So let's look at a couple of, we've got a few examples for this program actually. Now, Cairns Indigenous Art Fair was awarded $115,900 to employ 4 Indigenous job seekers as work skills trainees in Cairns for 26 weeks. The trainees completed a Certificate 1 in business on the job and emerged with first-hand knowledge of what it takes to stage Australia's premier Indigenous art fair and work and make connections in the creative arts industry. The trainees were simultaneously immersed in the traditions of culture while learning new technology skills and gaining practical experience in administration, event production and exhibitions, marketing and visual performing arts. So work activities included digital skills, film and media activities, project management, streaming live conversations for broadcast on social media, photography, installing, hanging and packing artworks, curating and community engagement activities. So culturally appropriate wraparound support included social and emotional wellbeing, mentoring, job searching, employability skills, personal grooming, language literacy numeracy assistance, and specialist services referrals. This project ended in October 2021. 4 trainees were employed, all of them completed, and all of them gained ongoing employment. Great photos there. Coastal Dry Tropics Land Care, they were awarded $152,700 to employ 6 disadvantaged job seekers in the Townsville region. So this project ended in December 2021. Now, individual support included development of a training and support plan, language literacy and numeracy assistance, job preparation, job readiness, and if required, post-participation support. So a special focus of the project centred around understanding connection to country and caring for country. 7 employed under this program, with 6 completing and 6 gaining ongoing employment. Tivoli Social Enterprises were awarded $499,900 to employ 24 trainees in the second and final year of a 2-year long-term contract. This project ended in September 2021, and individual support included language literacy numeracy assistance, case management, counselling, mentoring, work experience, specialist service referrals, job preparation, job search, and post-participation support up to 6 months after the project ended to encourage and mentor trainees in their new employment. This project was delivered in partnership with Ipswich Pro Drive during driving school. The Tivoli arranged for trainees to be provided with driving tuition outside of their work hours, so it didn't interfere with their engagement in the traineeship delivery, to assist them in obtaining their driver's license. 27 trainees were employed on the project, 25 completed, and 93%, or 25 of them, gained ongoing employment. Oldies Angels Incorporated were awarded $208,700 to employ 10 trainees. This project ended in April 2021, and individual support included conflict resolution, workplace bullying information, workplace health and safety, handling complaints, and post-participation support for up to 3 months. Wraparound support included learner driver assistance, specialist services referrals, uniforms, access to a hairdresser, and interview clothes. 10 trainees were employed on the project, 8 completed, and 7 gained ongoing employment. Now, the Gladstone area group apprentices were awarded $642,100 to employ 30 disadvantaged job seekers in Gladstone and Biloela. This project ended in June 2021. Wraparound support for this one included language literacy numeracy assistance, life and foundation skills, workshops, counselling, mentoring, specialist services referrals, social media etiquette, career advice, job preparation, job search activities, and if required, post-participation support. 31 trainees were employed, 26 completed, and 22 secured ongoing employment. So I know we just ran through quite a few different examples there of projects. I hope that's given you a good overview of the kinds of wraparound support that is able to be provided to participants through these programs to really set them up for success as they exit the program. So things like social media etiquette, assistance getting your learner's driver license, all kinds of things can be these are all the kinds of things that community-based organisations are great at identifying as a barrier to workforce participation, and the kinds of things that sometimes people need a little extra support in going through the process. So some really great ideas there with those example projects. Okay, we're getting into the next program here, which is Get Set for Work. So in this financial year, there will be up to $8.75 million to assist 2,350 disengaged youth, 15 to 19 years. So this one does have a targeted age bracket. So this funds locally based community organisations to deliver intensive training assistance over 12 months in a project-based delivery model. It aims to create a transition pathway by finding them a job, continue with educational training, or return to school. So employment outcomes are considered primary objective. All participants must be enrolled in nationally recognised training. Training delivery and assessment services funded under Cert 3 guarantee for this one. Integrated learner support is funded under the program. Practical learning activities include adventure-based learning, team building exercises, work experience or volunteering, employer visits, motivational speakers, and learner driver training. Now, the latest external survey results indicated that 69% of exited participants have gained a positive outcome that's in either a job, further training, or return to school 12 months after exiting. The primary focus is on early school leavers who are no longer enrolled in school. Young people at risk of disengaging from school can participate, but other learning options and school-based pathways should be explored prior to the participation on Get Set for Work. So this program is not to be used by schools as a punitive action or as a behaviour management strategy. And the KPI for this one is a 55% positive outcome. And again, the positive outcome here in this context is considered to be a combination of employment, entering further education and or training, or returning to school. But I want to emphasise here, the best place usually for young people in this age bracket to be is engaged in the school system. So it's not, young people shouldn't be encouraged to engage in the program if attending school is an option for them. Downs Industry Schools Co-op, or DISCO, that's a great acronym, was awarded $272,700 to employ 70 disadvantaged youth aged 15 to 19 years in the Toowoomba, Gatton and Dalby areas. 3 qualifications were delivered. Certificate 1 in skills for vocational pathways, Certificate 2 in skills for work and vocational pathways, or a Certificate 2 in business. This project ended in December 2021. Now, participants who undertook training built up their entry-level skills in either general education and training, business, or hospitality. Now, tailored support included employability skills, life skills, and these included building self-esteem and confidence and resilience. Soft skills, so communication, coping strategies, anger and time management, goal setting, personal development, computer skills, work experience, career planning, job preparation, which included application and resume development, and interview techniques, job searching, and post-participation support. So wraparound support included industry tours, personal presentation, hands-on skills, such as woodwork, plumbing, electrical, bricklaying, concreting, fencing, plastering, painting, welding, tiling, horticulture, cooking, art and craft, huge range of things offered here. Budgeting and banking, learner driver assistance and ID assistance. So for example, to obtain a tax file number or a Medicare card or a healthcare card. 70 participated, 100% completed one of the qualifications offered, which is absolutely fantastic. 56 of the participants gained a positive outcome, which was being a combination of employment, entering further education, or returning to school. Vocational Partnerships Group were awarded $225,900 to assist 63 young people aged 15 to 19 years. And these 3 qualifications were offered: Certificate 2 in business, Certificate 2 in community services, or a Certificate 2 in skills for work and vocational pathways. This project was designed to give participants confidence, motivation, and skills to transition into work or further education. Now, this project ended in December 2021. Individual support included employability skills, foundation skills, individual support and careers counselling, industry networking, job experience, resume development, job preparation, job search, and post-placement support. 63 participants engaged in this program, 100% completed, 52 or 83% gained a positive outcome, being a combination of employment, further education and training, or returning to school. You can see a great quote here by one of the participants at the bottom of the screen. She said, "A lot of things have changed for the better. The program helped me grow as a person and I've become more independent." Okay, the next program we're looking at is Ready for Work. So in this financial year, up to $4 million will be invested to get 5,000 people ready for work. So due to COVID, the restriction of 15 to 24 years has been changed to 15 years and above with no upper age limit. This was implemented in last financial year and will continue. The program has been expanded to also specifically target recently retrenched and displaced workers as a result of COVID-19 and older job seekers and skilled migrants who may benefit less from accredited training and more from specific skills or employment activities. So this funds community organisations and school P&Cs and PNFs to deliver basic job preparation and employability skills courses over 6 to 8 weeks in evenings or on weekends to those unemployed 15 years and above to get them ready for work. So this is job search support or activities only. It's not nationally recognised training is not available to be funded under this program. Referrals to other Skilling Queenslanders for Work training programs is permitted based on individual specific needs. Participants from other Skilling Queenslanders for Work training programs cannot be referred to Ready for Work because job search assistance has already been funded and provided through those programs. So those participants should already be receiving it in the program they're already engaged in. Now, school students may participate in Ready for Work, but only where it can be demonstrated that the student meets the following requirements: that they're at risk of disengaging from school, that they have minimal barriers to achieving employment, so they only require a little bit of assistance to transition successfully into work, and they don't have access to other forms of job search assistance. As you can imagine, there's probably a fairly small cohort that would meet those requirements. So latest external survey results indicate that 74% of exited participants have gained a positive outcome in jobs, further education and training, or a combination of both 12 months after exiting this program. Okay, the next program we're looking at is youth skills. So this year we've got seeing up to $1 million assisting 200 young people aged 15 to 24 years who are engaged with youth justice or Queensland Corrective Services or Queensland Police Service with nationally recognised training and supported into employment. So this program funds locally based community organisations with relevant capacity and experience to work with these young people. It encourages a creative and dynamic approach to intervention. Barriers are identified and it provides a supported pathway to these young people. All participants must be enrolled in training, which is funded under Cert 3 guarantee, and integrated learner support is funded under this program. So practical learning activities include adventure-based learning, team building exercises, work experience or volunteering, employer visits, motivational speakers, or things like learner driver training. Now, outcomes will vary according to individual learning pathways and their goals. Participants must be engaged with youth justice or Queensland Corrective Services or Queensland Police Service. They must be aged 15 to 24 years and no longer at school. They may be at risk of offending. DESBIT consults with Youth Justice and Queensland Corrective Services during the assessment process for their comments and advice on relevant local information regarding applicant organisations. And they consider past experience with the client base and performance outcomes and the proposed training and delivery strategies. So there's quite a few different agencies involved in assessing what projects they think will be successful under this program. Okay. First Start. Now, we've got two kind of elements to First Start. One is for local councils and one for community-based organisations. So wage subsidy for local councils is $15,000 for traineeship, and this year they introduced $30,000 for apprenticeships with priority given to regional and remote Queensland locations. Community-based organisations receiving $20,000 for traineeships. So funding under First Start or counts for councils is via a bidding process, which is managed by the Local Government Association of Queensland or LGAQ. And the bidding process involves councils requesting the number of traineeship positions required for the following financial year. So bids are assessed by LGAQ and endorsed by DESBIT. Now, community-based organisations can request an application form via the SKU Apps email address that we did share in the chat earlier, and you can submit applications directly to DESBIT. Now, applications are assessed on a number of criteria. They include experience managing government funding, ability to employ, train and supervise trainees, ability to retain post-traineeship, location suitability and experience with disadvantaged job seekers. Okay, so that was an overview of all the programs available through Skilling Queenslanders for Work. Now we're going to go into a bit more of an umbrella overview of Skilling Queenslanders for Work, including the kind of demographics that engage in these programs and the industries engaged in Skilling Queenslanders for Work, as well as some of the application process. Okay, so overall, 69,449 people have been recruited across all programs. That was as of 30th of June 2022. So overall, SKU has assisted 2,983 trainees who were enrolled as trainees and apprentices under First Start, both for councils and community-based organisations. And as of 30th of June 2022, 44,130 people have gained employment as a direct result of Skilling Queenslanders for Work. So this job count is based on people exited into employment from community work skills, Get Set for Work, Ready for Work, community foundation skills, Skill Up and youth skills, plus people employed as trainees on work skills traineeships projects and under First Start. So people are in a job from day one in these direct job creation programs. Data is not mutually exclusive and it has accumulated over time. 76.2% of participants experience a positive outcome. Again, they're either in employment, they're in training, or a combination of both of those things, including returning to school, 12 months after exiting a program. Destination survey, so the survey that evaluates that 12-month mark after exiting the program, is conducted by Queensland Government I always stumble over this word, Statisticians Office, QGSO, and they evaluate that over all the Skilling Queenslanders for Work participants 12 months after they exit a program. And these are the top 6 industries that Skilling Queenslanders for Work is engaging with. So since 2015, the top 6 SKU investment areas based on qualifications to be delivered and cost of the project are construction, agriculture, business, tourism, travel and hospitality, general education and foundation skills, and community services. So work skills traineeship projects account for a high percentage of overall budget. Construction received 39%. That's construction plumbing as well. Agriculture, horticulture and conservation and land management, 29.6%. Business services was 20.8%. Tourism, travel and hospitality was 8.9%. Retail services was 1.7%. And that data was updated on the 30th of June. So who can apply? Who's engaging in Skilling Queenslanders for Work? So Skills Assure suppliers, or SAS, are registered training organisations pre-approved by DESBT to deliver training and assessment services. So SAS's, Skills Assure suppliers, were formerly known as pre-qualified suppliers. You may have, if you've been in the training qualification world or even delivering the Skilling Queenslanders work previously, you might know them as pre-qualified suppliers. So that terminology has changed to Skills Assure suppliers, SAS. They're pre-approved by DESBT to deliver training and assessment services. So these are the RTOs you're looking to engage with. School parents and citizens and parents and friends associations are eligible to apply for funding under the Ready for Work program. So if you're here, if you're listening to this webinar on behalf of a PNC or PNF association, Ready for Work is a program that you're looking at. Now, job active providers are eligible to apply for funding if they're a not-for-profit organisation. However, you must address the duplication issue in your application and demonstrate what recruitment strategies will be used to ensure you're meeting the Skilling Queenslanders for Work eligibility criteria and you're actively recruiting people who are ineligible for job active services. And eligible not-for-profit community-based organisations can apply for First Start. So you're a community-based organisation. What are the roles and expectations? Wraparound support is tailored assistance based on identified needs. It may include assistance with living skills, counselling, confidence building, job prep skills, work experience, foundation skills, digital literacy, career pathway decisions, referral to external specialist support agencies if relevant. Your community-based organisation is responsible for designing and leading the project and providing ongoing engagement with participants and working in partnership with the RTO who delivers the training. Community-based organisations are very well placed for this role. You're fantastic at partnering because you need to deliver your work well on a day-to-day basis. And you're so good at identifying the needs of individuals and how to provide wraparound support to them. So this really is a perfect role for community-based organisations. So the community-based organisation is funded to provide wraparound or individual support services in a community-based environment. The community-based organisation support is delivered separately and in addition to the training component. So you're overseeing the whole project and you're really first hand in delivering that wraparound support, and you're also ensuring that that training or education element is happening as it should. So community-based organisations are expected to provide tailored individual support that addresses both work-related and non-work-related issues. If someone has been disengaged from the workforce, they've disengaged from formal learning prior to engaging in this program, there is obviously a few things there that need support. And so the community-based organisation is really the body really providing that wraparound support and designing a program that will suit that individual. Community-based organisations are expected to assist the RTO with developing an individual training and support plan, because you really carry the expertise around supporting vulnerable individuals. You're also responsible for the recruitment of participants. This is a really critical aspect to consider when you're designing a project. How many people out there are likely to engage in the program that you're looking to deliver? How will you recruit them? Where will you recruit them? Because that you as a community-based organisation, that responsibility lands on you if you receive the funding. And any post-participation support offered is provided in kind by the community-based organisation. So in quite a few of the examples I provided of successful SKU projects, there was a reference made to post-participation support. Now, in all of those instances, those organisations provided post-participation support in kind. So their organisation had built that into the budget, their own budget, that they would be providing support to participants after their Skilling Queenslanders for Work project ended. So really important to make that clear that DESBA is providing funding for the duration of the Skilling Queenslanders for Work project itself. Any post-participation support, that's provided in kind by the community-based organisation delivering the project. So you'll need to think about what's realistic for you, for your organisation in delivering that post-participation support, and typically leveraging off the kinds of support that you already offer as an organisation or the other organisations you work in partnership with. Okay, so assistance may include the above detailed broad components. Assistance should be individualised. I think we've made that fairly clear, is that this really isn't just a cookie cutter approach to training, development and support, that it really is centred around the individual and their individual needs. Assistance needs to be individualised and based on identified and emerging needs, but this doesn't preclude group and team building activities. Those things are really useful in this context. Projects that use a broad brush, so everyone has to do the same approach, have the potential to disengage participants and jeopardise positive outcomes and your project KPIs. So we really need to think carefully when we're designing programs and projects around how we're going to ensure that the very things that have made individuals disengage from learning environments previously aren't repeated through this program. Okay, and again, some of the things that we're offering individuals are things like life skills, counselling services, a lot of reference to driving, driver licence assistance, and support costs. So there might be subsidised travel, meal programs, interview outfits, a huge range of ways that you can support individuals in their pathway to employment. So the RTO, what's their role? What's the expectation on them? Training delivery must be reported in accordance with the Australian Vocational Education and Training Management Information Statistical Standard. If you look at the last bullet point, you'll see that acronym there, AVITMIS. Okay. So the Australian Qualifications Framework is the national policy for qualifications in the Australian education and training system, and the AQF provides a guide to the volume of learning. It describes how long a learner who does not hold any of the competencies identified in the relevant units of competency or modules would take to develop all of the required skills and knowledge. The volume of learning includes all teaching and learning activities, such as guided learning. That includes classes, lectures, tutorials, self-paced study, individual study, research, learning activities in the workplace, and assessment activities. So the amount of training provided by the RTO is part of the overall volume of learning and relates primarily to formal activities, including classes and other activities, as well as workplace learning. So really the crux of it is that RTOs must deliver sufficient volume of learning to ensure learners gain all the relevant skills and knowledge they require to participate in the workplace after the program. And they need to work with the community-based organisation to ensure they are catering to the individual learner. Now, applications. If you're looking to submit multiple applications, your organisation is working on a few different ideas, applications remain capped at 10 per applicant organisation per funding round. Capping is across all programs and all regions and is mandated in the program guidelines. So there's no wriggle room in that. A maximum of 10 applications per funding round can be submitted by an applicant organisation. Now, capping applications is a direct strategy to ensure new or smaller niche organisations continue to be considered for funding. If you are an organisation that usually submits multiple applications, you're really encouraged to consider combining the applications into one. So qualifications should be subsidised qualifications on the priority skills list. Selected RTOs must be skills assure suppliers with DESBIT, as we've already talked about. And RTOs must have selected qualifications in their scope of registration. Training must be linked to local employment opportunities and evidenced by current employment letters of support. So if you go through the actual application process, you will see that it's critical to your application that you have letters of support from local employers in your region that outline that the program you're looking to deliver is actually needed in your community. So choose a Skills Assure supplier or SAS with flexible and blended delivery models and assessment methods. So extended periods for learning and not restricted by minimum class size. And that's something that some community-based organisations unfortunately have been caught out with. They form a partnership with an RTO, they get the funding for Skilling Queenslanders for Work, they go to kick off the program, but they hadn't been clear with the RTO about minimum class size, and then that RTO might pull out because the community-based organisation is only looking to recruit 5 or 10 or 15 people into the class or into the program, and that RTO really their margins work off a larger class group. So they're all the kinds of conversations you're needing to have very early on in the partnership conversation before submitting an application. Things like class sizes, things like flexibility in delivery, things like catering to individual needs, all of those kinds of things. So the department is monitoring organisations delivering multiple projects or the dual role of community-based organisation and RTO. So just being really clear in your application about your role and how you're going to actually work this and addressing any kind of possible conflicts that might arise in your application. Now, Skilling Queenslanders for Work advisory committees are able to consider full fee-for-service funding of qualifications or skill sets that fall outside of the priority skills list. But again, like anything that's kind of falling outside of the norm, there needs to be a strong have evidence of strong industry or employer support. So I think DESBIT's really open to hearing ideas or projects that might sit outside of the normal parameters, but there needs to be evidence for and making a case for that. Again, nationally recognised training is just one component or aspect of Skilling Queenslanders for Work projects. The emphasis needs to be evenly balanced across that individual wraparound, work-related and non-work-related wraparound support, as well as the educational training component. And again, the department will be looking at organisations who are delivering their own projects as a community-based organisation, but are nominated as an RTO on other projects. So again, we're making sure we address these things in our application. Okay, so here is some good practice principles for delivering some really robust learning to participants. So we've got supported learner pathways and transitions built into learning experience. Strong partnerships exist to support learners' needs and their successful transitions to further learning and or work. Training has been integrated with work experience and aligned to area of the labour market demand to support sustainable employment outcomes, and it's embedded support for foundation skills with vocational training. The voice of the learner, knowing their community and the culture, that needs to be really evident in your delivery. Now, individual training and support plans are mandatory as part of your program or your project, and must include strategies to encourage participation and completion. So identify any support, either directly or through a third party, individual learners need prior to their enrolment or commencement of training, and provide access to support through training for language literacy and numeracy, assistive technology, additional tutorials, and other mechanisms such as assistance in using technology for online delivery components. You need to consider adjustments in the assessment process. Often disadvantaged cohorts lack the confidence and skills to get into formal training. This is the whole reason they may have disengaged from formal training or education previously. So again, we're making sure we're not repeating that process, that we're doing things a little differently. Now, the Australian Skills Quality Authority, or ASQA, is the national regulator of vocational education and training. So maximise the chance of disadvantaged learners by successfully completing training through the standards for RTOs. Access to support throughout training, which is individualised and targeted as reflected in training and support plans. And again, adjustments to support and accommodate emerging and changing needs. If you're delivering a project over quite a few months, all kinds of needs will emerge in that time for some of these learners, and some flexibility and being able to adapt to those emerging needs is really required by the community-based organisation and the RTO. So adjustments in the assessment process, as I've already mentioned, to accommodate the learner. And an example of that might be you're allowing oral rather than a written assessment. Okay, now this is a quick note about the Human Rights Act. As I'm sure many of you will know, as of 1st of January 2020, Queensland's Historical Human Rights Act came into effect. And this act is an acknowledgement of the dignity and worth of all people, recognising that equal human rights of everyone are a part of a democratic and inclusive Queensland. And we all have a responsibility to respect, protect and promote human rights. Now, this is important for everyone to know, but for you as a community-based organisation, the reason that you need to be really on top of the Human Rights Act is that if you're utilising public funds or Queensland Government funds to provide services to the public on behalf of the government, you are considered a functional public entity under the Act. So you need to consider the implications of the Act when making decisions and reviewing any procedures or policies. Now, if this sounds a little scary to you, please don't be. There are plenty of resources available to assist your understanding of the Human Rights Act and your implementation of the Human Rights Act. You can find lots of resources on the Queensland Human Rights Commission website, and on the bottom bullet point there on the screen, you can see the website there. Additionally, communitydoor.org.au. We'll provide a link in the post-event email, but there's plenty of resources there that QCOS has developed over time to assist you in the understanding and application of the Human Rights Act. So if this is something that's a little new to you, there's lots of information out there to assist. Now, here is just a few top tips for applications. In the tender writing workshops, we will go into some more detail around some of these points. There's also some video resources on the QCOS website that go through some tips for applications. But here's a few really important ones for you to keep in mind. If you have applied for Skilling Queenslanders for work previously, you may have utilised a budget tool. That was a separate document that you then had to attach to your application. The budget is now embedded within the web-based application form. So there is no separate budget tool anymore. It's just embedded in the portal. Now, budgets must include a breakdown of expenses or costs. So, for example, do not state $20,000 admin costs and not provide any breakdown of those items or expenses that make up the $20,000. So, there needs to be some kind of breakdown there so DESBT, your funder, really understands what it is that they're providing funding for. Now, that helps them in their decision making. But it also helps you as an organisation. If you have any kind of turnover of staff or any kind of confusion around your budget internally for this project, it really helps to have some detail in your budget so you know exactly what it was that you were thinking about when you put $20,000 down, for example. Again, if you're handing that over to a new staff member, for them to be able to see the detail of what that portion of the budget's meant to be covering is pretty important. Now, a number of applicant organisations are still forgetting to include student contribution fees. These are mandatory for all programs except for work skills traineeships, which are exempt, or ready for work, which is nationally recognised training not funded, or community foundation skills, which through which standalone non-accredited foundation skills training can be delivered. So really make sure that if you're applying for any of those other programs, that your student contribution fees, which are mandatory, are included in your budget. Now, the price per participant for student contribution fees should match the price that's published on the SAS website for Certificate 3 guarantee or user choice. If the SAS is charging additional support costs, then these costs need to be included in other costs with supporting notes. You need to tell DESBT a little bit more about that, why that cost is higher. Supporting notes should be detailed and total costs outlined, should equal the total funds sought for the relevant budget line item. Now, the Skilling Queenslanders for Work Guide to Applying for Funding, which is located on the SKU website, has top tips in the do's and don'ts when it comes to the budget proposals. It's a really useful document. I highly recommend reading through that before you even get started on an application. Now, some of the Skills Assure suppliers have been withdrawing from projects as they require a minimum class number. I think I've already mentioned that. Please have that chat with your RTO. If they do have a minimum class number, is it a realistic one for you? What will be the plan if you can't seem to get that many participants? And really, community-based organisations need to shop around for a RTO that's going to best suit their needs and the partnership and the project as a whole. Okay, so who are some of the target groups we're targeting through Skilling Queenslanders for Work? Now, these are target groups only. Participants do not have to necessarily belong to one of these target groups as long as they meet the specific program eligibility criteria. So we've got here recently released prisoners, young people aged 15 to 24 years, including those in and transitioned from out-of-home care, mature age job seekers aged 45 years and over, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, people with disability, migrants and refugees from culturally diverse backgrounds, women re-entering the workforce, veterans, ex-Defence Force members and their families, underutilised workers, including underemployed and those marginally attached to the labour force, retrenched or displaced workers as a result of COVID-19. And again, you can recruit outside of these target groups if there are barriers to training and employment, for example, long-term unemployed working age job seekers. So the role of the state really is to fill the gap and primarily provide training and support services to people not eligible for the Australian Government employment services or assistance. So the selection of participants for enrolment is at the discretion of the funded provider and subject to eligibility criteria and in consultation with DESBIT. So individual programs are subject to some variation in eligibility criteria, and DESBIT will monitor the number of Australian Government clients participating in SKU. So keep in mind that future funding for an organisation may be impacted if a high percentage of Workforce Australia, or previously known as Job Active, clients are recruited onto these projects. And there's no upper age limit. A business case seeking approval for participation for individuals on a bridging visa A, B, C, or E, or any other visa outside the visa eligibility list must be submitted to the department via the SKU app's email address previously shared. That's sqwapps@desbit.qld.gov.au. Okay, this is really important. School students are ineligible for Cert 3 guarantee. The majority of training and assessment services under Skilling Queenslanders for Work are funded under Certificate 3 guarantee. School students looking for a traineeship should explore school-based apprentices or traineeships. And school students are able to participate in Ready for Work projects in accordance with the program eligibility criteria. So nationally recognised training is not delivered as the program offers basic job preparation services and assistance only. So again, really just emphasising that we want young people to be in school if that's an option for them, and that participating in Skilling Queenslanders for Work shouldn't be used as a punitive action by schools, and school age youth should certainly not be encouraged to be participating in Skilling Queenslanders for Work as an alternative to attending school if that's what they're able to do. Now, expected employment outcomes will really vary between the programs. They're all quite different. Employment can be full-time, which is considered more than 25 hours a week, or part-time, less than 25 hours per week, in permanent, temporary, or casual or self-employed capacity. So community work skills traineeships, Ready for Work, and Skill Up have a KPI of 55% employment outcomes. Get Set for Work has a KPI of 55% positive outcome, which is a combined outcome of employment, further training, or return to school. Youth Skills does not stipulate a percentage employment outcome. Outcomes for community foundation skills are identified by applicant organisations, and success will also be measured by the pre and post foundation skills assessment for participants. That's based on the ACSF and CSFW assessment tools. Now, participant outcomes are recorded by the organisation as an exit project. Participant reports are submitted monthly to DESBIT throughout the life of the project, and organisations submit their final report 90 days after a project completes, and all outcomes, completion of qualification, employment, retained employment or increased hours for existing workers, further training, returning to school, not in the labour force or unemployed, are to be reported and recorded on the departmental database as the final outcomes. It's really important that we measure how effective different programs are. And then all participants are externally surveyed 12 months after exiting the program. What I find really useful is that there is a fact sheet for all of the programs on the DESBIT website, and each of those fact sheets actually have a really clear KPI for that program. Really useful for forming your application for Skilling Queenslanders for Work, to look at the fact sheet for the program that you're actually applying for, and really getting familiar with things like what is the expected KPI for the program that I'm applying for. That will help you shape up your project. Now, how are these submissions assessed? So Skilling Queenslanders for Work advisory committees review, prioritise and recommend applications for funding under 7 community-based training programs. that we've gone through this webinar. So it's a comparative assessment of all eligible applications, and it's undertaken under the published criteria in the program funding guidelines. Now, these advisory committees also consider the regional unemployment rate, the need to focus on eligible identified disadvantaged groups, government and locally based priorities, the geographical spread of the proposed projects in the area, the qualifications to be delivered, the potential for sustainable job outcomes, local industry and occupational profiles, identified local entry-level and labour needs, previous performance and budget availability. So the advisory committees have no involvement in the funding processes for the First Start program because that program is centrally managed. And the SKU advisory committees, they were formerly known as the Regional Priority Jobs Committees, were established to ensure independent regional coordination of Skilling Queenslanders for work. So it's not the same committee that's assessing all of the applications. They're looking at their region's applications. And membership of these advisory committees comprises of representatives nominated by community, employer bodies, employer, government and regional stakeholders. So a really diverse group of people having a look at their region's applications. Now, online application allows applicant organisations to attach supporting documentation. So some attachments are mandatory and the application will not be able to submit without them. So you won't actually be able to move on to the next part of the application if you haven't submitted what you need to. And an error message will appear if a mandatory field is missing. After submission, a confirmation email is sent to the organisation contact that submitted the application. The frequently asked questions are published on the SKU web pages, so check that out. Again, the DESBT website's got heaps of information. It's quite a user-friendly online application process with secure cloud-based environment. Information can be securely accessed at any time from any device with internet access. So previously, only some devices could access the portal or were functional. The portal was functional on. These days, any device can access the portal. Now, organisations must register online and create an account, and then applications can be worked on over time in more than one sitting. So you can save it, come back to it later, but once submitted, can't be edited. So just make sure you've got everything just how you need it before you press that submit button. Now, there are two competitive funding rounds for 2022 to 2023. So this one that's open at the moment is the first for the financial year. And generally the first for a financial year expends about 70% of the whole SKU budget, with the remaining 30% committed in the smaller second funding round in the financial year. So early on in 2023, we'll see a second round open with about 30% of the SKU budget remaining for that round. It's a transparent, contestable application process. Applications are assessed against published program assessment criteria, and applications are assessed on a regional comparative basis. Departmental knowledge and experience is drawn on, so current and past program performance is taken into account. There's two stages. It's up here on the screen. Firstly, DESBT assesses whether or not a organisation has capacity to manage. If the assessment process does not indicate that an organisation has capacity to manage, it does not progress onto stage 2. So it's really important to establish your capacity to manage in your application. If you pass that, your application will go into stage 2, which is looked at by those locally based groups. Okay, with 2 minutes to go, here is our timeline. Projects are to commence February 2023 onwards. Organisations need to nominate a commencement date in their application for funding, and it's expected that, again, you're going to commence it in February. Participant intakes can roll into or continue through the next financial year, dependent on the start date. A standard contract period is 12 months. Long-term contracts may be considered. The second funding round for this year opened on the 1st of August. You will have probably already seen that on the DESBT website. The funding round is open for 8 weeks and is closing 5 p.m. sharp on Thursday, the 22nd of September. Organisations are encouraged to submit prior to the closing date. You never know if a device or internet or something is going to mess with your plans on the due date. So submitting early is always a good idea. Maximum of 10 applications allowed per organisation. No applications will be accepted late. Online access to the portal will shut down at 5 p.m. on the 22nd of September. October to November will be the assessment and approval process, with December, January, the Minister announcing results. And February 2023 is when you're ready to kick off. Projects will commence. Projects must start in the financial year funded after July 2022 and before 30th of June 2023, but intakes can roll into the next financial year. All right, so for more information, you can head to these various locations. We have got tender writing workshops being delivered for all of the different regions across Queensland. They're being delivered online for this funding round. Jump onto the QCOS website, onto the events page to have a look at what dates and times are available. And they're a great workshop to participate in if you're looking for some support and assistance in writing your application for Skilling Queenslanders for work. The email address that we've referred to a few times through this webinar is on the screen there. So please contact Esbet with any of your questions about Skilling Queenslanders for work. We really hope that this provided all the information you needed to make a decision about whether or not you're engaging in Skilling Queenslanders for work for this funding round, or provided you with some information for planning for future funding rounds. I'm going to pop a poll up onto the screen to get your feedback on how you found the workshop. Thanks for joining us today. Look out for the post-event email because we will be providing quite a bit of information in that one. And enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I hope to see you at one of the tender writing workshops. If you've got any questions at all, please pop them into the chat. If I can't answer them myself, we'll pass them on to Desbet. Thank you.